Hello everybody, welcome to the Saroy channel. I've got a fabulous story today for you, and it comes all the way from Eddie in California. And this story is a bit sensitive because he talks about his intention to kill himself, but how that led to his Bigfoot encounter. So for sensitive viewers, maybe it's not so good to listen to, but let's get started. Dear Sarah, I was very hesitant about whether I should write this letter to you. Not because of the extraordinary Bigfoot encounter that my story contains, but more because I will be talking about my intentional plan to kill myself that ultimately led to my encounter with the hairy man. However, it did occur to me that there are people out there, maybe even one of your listeners, you never know, who may feel now how desperate and hopeless I felt then. It is because of this possibility that I knew that maybe my story could help someone out there. You see, the great lesson I learnt in my life is that things do change and that nothing ever stays the same. So even that rock bottom place that you may have reached, that place will pass. Anyway, back to my story. Your listeners may be wondering why I'd reached this place of total and absolute desperation. Well, it was in the recession of 2014 and the economy was at an all-time low. I had been laid off from my job, and try as I might, I simply could not find any work. For a man, sometimes not being able to provide for your family makes you feel useless and pathetic. One day, after being turned back from yet another job interview, I felt hopeless and worthless that I cannot explain. I felt as if my manhood had been stripped away from me. Worse still, I returned home to find my wife sobbing hopelessly in the kitchen. We did not have anything to eat in our cupboards, and even our cupboards were completely bare. The children were going to go to bed with growling and hungry stomachs. You can imagine how I felt like a complete failure and a useless father and a husband, and there is no worse feeling, let me tell you. I tried to comfort my wife, but my worst fears were realized. Things would never get better, I thought. My wife's pain cut through me like the sharpest knife, and my whole being was tormented with feelings of total wretchedness. I could not provide for my wife. I could not provide for my children. What kind of a man did that make me? I hated myself in that moment more than anything else in the world, and I saw myself as the biggest failure in life. I just could not go on like this. That despair, it was robbing me of any hope for the future. At that moment, my cell phone rang. I answered. Hello. Good evening, Mr. Thomas. I'm phoning to tell you that your job application was not a success, but we do wish you well in the future. Those words were the final trigger or the nail in the coffin, and I was a broken man, beyond broken. I just knew I wanted to end it all, and without thinking, I found a heavy-duty rope to hang myself with, and I got into my car and drove to the nearest woods. As I arrived at the woods, I literally ran into the forest filled with pine, oaks, cedar, and redwood trees. I could smell that beautiful smell of Christmas from the crushed leaves on the forest floor. I started to search for the perfect tree to hang myself on. It needed to be strong and robust, because I was over 200 pounds at the time. I suddenly felt that strange feeling coming over me that I was being watched and I was not alone. Was there someone else in the forest, I wondered? But I looked around and there was no one there, and the forest seemed eerily quiet and still. I proceeded to put the rope on my neck, and the next thing I knew, my rope had been snatched away. It was completely gone, and I looked everywhere, but could not find it. I was shocked. Where did my rope go, I wondered. The next thing I knew was I was hearing this chattering sound, and then I saw this movement coming from behind an oak tree, several yards from where I was standing. I could see this moving blotch of black hair, and this tiny little face peering at me from behind a tree. Whatever this creature was, he appeared to be playing peekaboo with me, and then he showed himself. He squatted on all fours with one hand on the floor and the other holding my rope, like he was teasing me. He looked up at me with this mischievous expression in his brown eyes and waved the rope at me as if to say, "Come on, get it! Come on, get it!" In that moment, I forgot all my intentions of killing myself because I was enthralled by this creature. I had never seen anything like him before. What on earth was he, I wondered? He was about 4.5 feet tall. He had a lean, lanky body with long arms like a orangutan monkey. He had a cone-shaped face with big brown eyes that twinkled with mischief. I knew he wanted to play with me by the way he would dangle the rope at me as I reached to grab it. Then he would snatch it away and make this delighted chattering sound as if he was laughing himself silly. The creature was funny. I even found myself smiling. He would jump from the ground 4 feet in the air to grab a branch with his long arm, and he would swing from it like a monkey, all the while watching me with curious eyes. I was enchanted by the creature, and I watched him for a long while as he continued to swing from branch to branch with the true dexterity of a monkey. Only this creature was not a monkey. The next thing I knew was it was squatting in front of me again on all fours, and then it started throwing a few dried up corn husks at me, and I threw them back at him, and it was like a game for both of us. The creature chittered away happily, and I knew he was enjoying himself as much as I was. I was lost in the fun that the two of us were having, even though I was having a game with a creature I knew nothing about. Suddenly I heard a bird call coming from the woods. The little creature perked up, looked away from me, as he answered the bird call with exactly the same bird sound. I was so surprised by the sound because it sounded like a genuine bird that was whistling. He then looked at me, threw another husk at me, and then finally disappeared into the woods within seconds. I found myself laughing. The creature had been so cute, not pretty by any means, but definitely incredibly cute. But what was he, I wondered? I was so excited and I could not wait to tell my wife what I had seen, so I rushed home to tell her as soon as possible, forgetting all about my intention to kill myself. Even the rope had been long since forgotten and left behind in the forest. "You will not believe what I saw in the woods," I gushed as I saw my wife. My wife looked surprised. "Why were you in the woods?" I looked sheepishly at her. I just wanted to walk." "I was looking for you everywhere. I had something to tell you. Guess what?" she said. "We only got our tax return in the post this morning, and I've only opened it now. Can you believe it? I thought it was a bill. Look," she said in delight, handing me the papers. I was overjoyed because it was a sizable amount of money. The next thing I knew, we were in each other's arms, dancing around the kitchen. I suddenly felt so elated and so happy, as if all my troubles were at long last behind me. "Oh, what did you say you saw in the woods?" she asked curiously. Nothing important," I said. The next day I received a phone call from a company that wanted to hire me, and better still, the money was 3 times as much as my previous job. I could hardly dare believe it. I then remembered how close I came to killing myself, and now I was so glad to be alive. Wow! I thought things could have been so different if it had not been for that monkey that I saw in the woods. I know now that the creature must have been a little Bigfoot who wanted to play with me. He was only a child, I think, a child Bigfoot. I think the bird call I heard in the woods must have been his mother calling him. I never for a moment felt any kind of fear around this creature, only intrigue and curiosity. This creature made me forget about wanting to kill myself, and instead he made me laugh and forget my pain. All I want to say to anyone listening is that do not ever try end your own life, because the lesson that I learnt is that this too will pass. In other words, things might be low now for you, but hang on in there. because tomorrow could altogether be different, as it was for me. I can guarantee one thing: you will be so glad you're alive, because there is so much to live for, and life is so precious and so wonderful and so valuable. If you do not believe me, I challenge you to take a walk in the woods and to smell the lovely pine smells and listen to the beautiful bird calls and watch the wonderful wildlife. And when you leave the forests, you will wonder why you were ever so sad and down on yourself. So there you go, that's my story. I never told my wife about my Bigfoot experience, and I never will, but I'm happy to be sharing it with you, especially if it helps someone. Thank you so much, Eddie, and I'm sure it's helped all of us because we all have moments when we're down. Until next time, good night.